Another year, another painful end to the Cowboys season. This one may be more painful than all the rest. Give me one word for how you're feeling right now. Is it depressed? That's my one word. Sad, angry, whatever. Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Let's talk Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys, again, terrible performance. Didn't show up. They weren't even close. And it was a game they had no business losing. They were a better team than Green Bay, and you would have never known based on what we just saw in that performance. And I'll say it before and I'll say it again. When everything is bad, it is a coaching issue. And I had kind of poo-pooed the Belichick stories, whatever. Like, if the Cowboys get blown out and they get embarrassed, we can revisit that. They got blown out and they got embarrassed. It's time to revisit that. Mike McCarthy has won 12 straight games in 3 straight years. Never been done in Dallas. It's really impressive. But when it's loss, and you go 1-3 in the postseason, that's not good enough. And at a certain point, we have hit the ceiling of this team with Mike McCarthy. The Cowboys laid an egg again. They did not show up. This is twice now. The Niners 2 years ago, and then the Packers here. They were at home, and they got punched in the mouth, and they never responded. They were sloppy everywhere. It was everything that was bad in this game. And I believe that when everything is bad, when the offense is terrible, the defense, probably special teams is bad. I mean, you had the ball at your own 22 on average. That's horrible starting field position. That is a coaching issue. That's a bad thing. For this team, for this organization, it's all about the playoffs. It's all about, can they make enough noise? Yeah, records and wins are great. You're not terrible. You're not trash. But be more than a disappointment. The coach scared again. And he went back to the stuff that he likes. We're going to run the football. We're going to run on 2nd and 10. We're going to not do motion, do short passing game. And the offense didn't respond to that. They got better once they opened it up in garbage time. And the team played scared. That's just not going to work. So I think you have to fire Mike. What do you guys think? Do you want to fire Mike McCarthy as the Cowboys head coach? It'll be the pinned comment on today's video. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Y for yes or N for no. Now, I don't think, and I could be wrong on this, I didn't have a great data sorter, but I don't think there's one that's happened to. I don't believe a coach has been fired after 3 straight 12-win seasons. I think you have to make Mike McCarthy the first to do it. You have to make history here. He's not good enough. This is your best path to being better next year. You need real change in this offseason. You cannot just run it back and expect any of us to believe in you. It's not going to happen. Let's be honest here. Where does Mike McCarthy rank among head coaches? If you were power ranking the head coaches, he's not top 10, right? He can't be. Is he even top 15? Maybe. I think you can find better options out there. Now, you run the risk of being worse. I will acknowledge all of that. And you still have uncertainty if you do make that change. I think we've hit our ceiling with this team as constructed. I need real change. If and when that change happens, we will have you covered. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Hopefully the next live show is breaking Mike McCarthy fired. If it's not, we'll therapy our way through it. Hit that sub button for me right now. I think for what Jerry wants, a veteran head coach makes sense. Jerry doesn't want to rebuild. That's not what he wants to do. Well, Bill Belichick's out there. Now, this is not the same Bill Belichick that you could have hired, 5-10 years ago. There's fair points to be made about the whole, outside of Tom Brady stuff, although his defenses were so good in New England. I think he can bring you some stability. He can help change the culture in a way you need to, although it can't just be Patriot Way 7.0, because it hasn't worked anywhere outside of Brady. It doesn't work elsewhere. There needs to be a hybrid here. It cannot be Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. It can be Bill in charge of your defense. That's fine. You need to have Will McClay run the draft. Bill's a bad drafter. He misses a lot. If you just let Bill be the head coach and defensive influencer guy and find a good offensive coordinator, I think that can work. I'm also open to Mike Vrabel. I think if you're ranking head coaches, isn't Vrabel pretty high on that list? Now, there were issues in Tennessee. He had some personnel input and wanted more and didn't get it, and he and his owner didn't get along in the end. They also didn't communicate, and that was a real problem. I wonder how well Vrabel and Jerry would get along. You also got to figure out your offensive coordinator stuff. That's a common thread on all of these. All three guys I'm talking about right here. OC is a question mark, but he's aggressive on fourth downs when he needs to be. He's very good in that area. I appreciate that. He gets the most out of his players and team. When was the last time we said, hey, a Cowboys coach got the most out of his team? Jimmy? I guess Barry? Briefly? That's it. The other big name then that's lingering is Jim Harbaugh, who's got a Chargers interview, by the way. I have my doubts as to whether or not Jim and Jerry could get along very well, but everywhere he goes, he wins. Every spot he has won at a higher level than what you're accustomed to. So I think you'd be foolish to at least not consider it. Now, you got to figure out the coaching staff there. Seems like Jim is more on board with a GM being in charge there, but you still got to figure that whole thing out. Who do you want as the next Cowboys head coach? Sound off for me in the comment section right now. Tell you who I don't want. It's Dan Quinn. For a year and a half plus now, this defense has been unable to consistently deliver against the best competition. Even more so than your offense, which we'll get to here, by the way, has done. They seem to abandon more of the man stuff and played some more zone with blitzes against their great blitz-beating quarterback. They didn't know their opponents. Quinn's going to have head coach interviews, more on that in a bit here, but this is another year of you're facing a good offense from the Cowboys. You're playing a good opponent on offense, and the results were unacceptable. We'll talk about the passing game stuff here too. But they got outcoached. Matt LaFleur ran circles around Dan Quinn. And that scheming stuff, the LaFleurs, the Shanahans, etc., man, they've owned Dan Quinn. They coached him in Atlanta, and they kicked his ass again. And again, who played well on defense? Tank made some run stops. I thought Chauncey Golson actually played pretty well. That's it. Micah Parsons was a no-show again. And then, in previous years, at least he got pressures. He didn't this time. He got 3 of them. Drew a hold on one. That was the biggest play of the game. He finally drew a holding call. It's not good enough. Now, Quinn's got head coaching interviews. Panthers, Titans, Commanders, Chargers all going to meet with him. Seahawks are going to meet with him as well, it sounds like, at some point, too. It's fine. He can move on. So what do you want to do with Dan Quinn? K for keep. L for just allow him to leave if he gets a job. Otherwise, sure, he can come back. F for fire. And K for keep is the head coach style. Go vote in the comments. I don't really care. And maybe it's still in that emotional reaction stage, whatever. But he can't be your head coach. If you go into this year and go, you know what, we're going to hire Dan Quinn, you're screwed. It's not going to work. It wasn't even just the run defense against Green Bay. Aaron Jones ran all over them in the second half. They actually did a pretty good job early on of stopping him. But they got smoked through the air. Jordan Love had the most efficient playoff game in history from an EPA per play, expected points out of percentage. He dominated them. Among the 24 quarterbacks, at least 7 playoff games this century, the average opponent passing efficiency, so EPA per play, the number 2 quarterbacks are Matt Ryan and Dak Prescott, meaning the opposing team's quarterbacks have gone off against them. Guess who is the one constant there? Dan Quinn. That's not good. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. You can go over to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. I'll showcase for you guys my final wild card round prize pick selections that I've got after kind of slowed down a little bit here as of late in fairly frustrating fashion, but that's okay. I'm playing with some of my bonus money thanks to Prize Picks first deposit match. The games today / tonight, I've got more than James Cook rushing yards, a half receiving yard for DeAndre Swift was kind of a freebie there, easy. More than 89.5 yards from the ground, and more than Cade Otton receiving yards as well. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. Now, there was no way we could get out of here without having some Dak conversation, right? I mean, come on. I would argue that was probably the worst half I've ever seen Dak play in a playoff game. And yeah, the second half numbers were great. He threw for 300-something yards. The game was in garbage time. That doesn't really mean anything for me. Dak did not look like the second-team All-Pro that we saw. And the numbers were deceptive. Ignore them. Toss them out the window. They don't mean anything. He was awful to start. He didn't look comfortable. He and Lamb were off, and that's concerning to me because that chemistry has been really good. Makes me wonder if they had belief in that offensive game plan going in, if that was maybe a root cause. He had legitimately put like an MVP candidate. You, me, and the fans, we've been arguing, hey, MVP candidate. He should win MVP. He probably should have won MVP, if we're being honest. Did not play like it. And it's not just cut him, trade him. Dak has the contract, favor. He has the leverage. You have to make a decision. Whether it's trade him post June 1st, which I think is a really unlikely option, by the way, or extend him or kick the can down the road. You have to make a decision. You have enough information. He's a top 10 quarterback. I've stuck by that for a very, very long time here. You have to make a decision. But you have to figure out the head coach first. That's the bigger priority. Because if you go veteran, if you go like Bill Belichick, he's going to want Dak. And he's not going to want Jimmy Garoppolo back. Like, come on, let's be realistic there. But you can't run it back with Mike, Dak, and Quinn. It's not going to work. This has been my constant. You need change. You need real change. And you probably need a real coaching search. Because doing the same thing and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. You have to make real change there. And with as bad as everything was in that game, nothing should be off the table. From every player on your organization, because they all didn't play very well, nothing should be off the table. Not saying all things are equally realistic, but nothing should be off that table in the end. We will have more off-season coverage for you guys here on the channel. One more news item before we go. Futures deals have been signed for Earl Bostic, Josh Butler, Princeton Fant, Buddy Johnson, Darrell Johnson, Racey McMath, Jalen Cropper, and Sheldrick Redwine. Nothing surprising there. Those are practice squad guys who will fill out your preseason roster. That's very much expected.